You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. So today, signing day, the traditional February signing day, and LSU was slated to add at least one player. And the one player that we all knew that LSU was going to add was five-star defensive tackle Dominic McKinley out of Acadiana, a five-star, the number one player in the state of Louisiana, and Dominic McKinley didn't waste any time. He sent in his paperwork this morning, polishing off the LSU class. Here was Brian Kelly today on McKinley.
He happens to be the top player in the state of Louisiana, so we wanted to give him the due respect. Dominic McKinley out of Acadiana High School signed with us this morning, and we're excited about him, a consensus five-star defensive lineman, ranked 13th nationally. I think that's 8 out of the top 12, 12 of the top 15 players in the state of Louisiana that we're able to sign in this class, and certainly adding Dominic to this class really tops it off for us.
So not only was it so important to get Dominic McKinley because he's from Louisiana, but your defensive line, as we've gone through, has been decimated. Your top three guys all left for the draft: Jordan Jefferson, Mekhi Wingo Mason-Smith. Some of your young rotational guys, Fitzgerald West, Ty G. Hill, Bryce Langston, they transferred. So your numbers have been decimated at defensive tackle. This was the top player in the state, giant position of need, and you flipped him from A&M. Speaking of A&M, the other big story today on signing day was if LSU were going to be able to flip Terry Bussey. Terry Bussey is a five-star, one of the top athletes in the country, projects as a defensive back at the college level. A lot of you know the story. Terry Bussey was committed to A&M. Jimbo gets fired. He did not sign in December, left his recruitment open, took visits to LSU, and ultimately it came down to LSU, Texas A&M. And earlier today, this morning, 9 a.m. Central Time, Terry Bussey made the announcement at his high school.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I will take my talents to Texas A&M University.
So Terry Bussey announces he's going to stay home there in the state of Texas. And I made a few calls earlier today on the Texas A&M side, and kind of what was expressed to me about Bussey. One person in particular said A&M was not losing this one. It would have been too much of an embarrassment. And that makes sense. And listen, I want to be very clear. I am not throwing that out there as shade at Texas A&M. That is not a knock on Texas A&M. That's not the LSU guy propping up LSU and knocking Texas A&M. That is the cost of doing business, and it actually makes a ton of sense. Think of it in reverse. You're Texas A&M. You paid $75 million to fire your coach. Your class had been decimated, and by LSU in particular. Jordan Gilbert left via the portal. Gabe Relaford from Shreveport flipped to LSU. Cohen Eccles, 4-star offensive lineman from Texas, flipped to LSU. Then Dominic McKinley, 5-star defensive lineman from Louisiana, flipped to LSU. 3 blue-chip prospects and one of your starting defensive backs all left your program for LSU. And now here's a kid from Texas, a 5-star, crown jewel of your class, and he might be going to LSU as well. They were like, no. Like, whatever it's going to take is just what it's going to do. They weren't losing it. That's kind of how it was explained to me today. So I understand it. I mean, think if the shoe was on the other foot. Like if LSU was desperate to keep Dominic McKinley in state with all that, just think of it in reverse. It makes sense. So when I look at Bussey, I'm not going to downplay Terry Bussey. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, well, you're good. I don't think the LSU program will crumble because Terry Bussey picked Texas A&M, but he's a 5-star. He's the number 1 athlete in the country. He projects as a defensive back. Shea Dixon was with us on Tuesday and said Bussey could play corner or safety and could be a day 1 starter at either position. And let me remind you, LSU secondary a year ago was atrocious. So, yes, it's plausible to think he could have stepped in day one and been a starter at either spot, because I don't think anybody's got a job locked up going into spring. Do you? I don't think I could definitively tell you that any player in LSU secondary has a starting job written in ink to the start of spring practice. None. Nobody. So, yeah, it's significant. And he's also staying in the SEC at one of your rival schools that you play every year. So, yeah, it's significant that you didn't get the kid. But the flip side of it is, look at all the progress LSU made in such a short amount of time, especially in the secondary. You know, with getting Jabari Antoine committed, you know, with getting the number one safety in the country for 2025 on campus for a visit with DJ Pickett. You look at getting to the finish line there with Terry Bussey. I mean, LSU has announced itself that they are big game hunting again in the secondary. You're not jumping on planes to fly across multiple states to recruit 3-stars anymore. You're back to what you were. And listen, even when you go big game hunting, every prospect that you land is a trophy. You're not going to land all of them, but every one you land is going to be a trophy. So that's the nature of fishing in the deep end. When you pull up, you're not going to look. Every cast isn't going to net you a catch, but when you do reel one in, it's a friggin' marlin that's going on your wall. Like that's the game LSU's playing now, which they played for a long time. They got away from that, but they're back to doing it. So to that end, I don't know how you look at today. I don't know how you look at this class as anything other than successful. You know, Brian Kelly and this LSU staff ends up putting together a pretty incredible finish to this class. And I don't even think it's fair to say they're entirely done, because they're not done with transfers. But if you look at On3 ranks this LSU class the 4th best class in America. The composite has them 7th, but On3 has them 4th. I mean, that's back-to-back now top 10 classes for Brian Kelly. And when you think about what they're already building with the number one class for 2025, and you think about the bumper crop in Louisiana for 2026, you would certainly think like this isn't slowing down anytime soon. If anything, it's only going to accelerate. You know, and Brian Kelly talked about, this approach that they're taking, which is building through the high school. It's different from what we're seeing in other places, but he's talked about it before. And it's taken a couple of cycles to get to this point, but where you're building through the high school ranks instead of building through the portal.
We had a huge need last year. There were issues relative to numbers within our program where we had to go into the transfer portal just to field the roster, from a defensive perspective. And, that's not sustainable. What's sustainable is player development, retention, and you do that through building relationships with your players that are here because they want to be at LSU. For me, I think the business plan has been all along to pull our base here in the state of Louisiana, develop the high school player, and then by doing so, you develop a relationship and a trust and an allegiance to the young man that's in your program. That doesn't mean you don't use the transfer portal. I think you've got to be strategic in it, and you've got to be in it when you need it.
Build through the high school ranks, supplement through the portal. That's their approach. But the key to that is development and retention, which Brian Kelly talked about. Can you develop? Can you retain? Only time will tell. But as you piece together that sequence, the first part is building through elite high school classes. Check. Now let's see how they do the other couple of parts. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.